So I think that shouldn't be. Don't think be too much opportunity to see.
Got one here.
Yeah, here, we can.
I can move it around. We got plenty of.
We can put this on this one. Jerry won't be here tonight,
Okay.
so.
Talking to the monkey man.
I don't think so.
That's all right.
Yeah, Jerry's out of town or out of the country, one or the other. No, he said he was gonna be gone, but the title was is that out of country. So he might be bike riding.
Yeah, wasn't he? Yeah, they must do some traveling because wasn't he out of this last summer? Didn't they go somewhere too? I thought.
They went to Ireland.
Ireland.
They biked in Ireland.
Okay. Okay.
How was your vacation, Al?
Great. We had a good time. We went with another couple. They're our friends and we came back friends.
That's really good.
I mean, you spend 16 days with some people and sometimes it's like, I didn't sign up for this, man.
Yep.
And
You're
so-
still friends. That's.
Yeah,
funny.
it does definitely test things. That's
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like when you go to honey camp, you know, sometimes you'd find out who your real friends are. You
Yeah.
go on a honey trip with them
yeah, after
and then do it
that
for a
much.
second time.
I know you went to Ireland. Where else?
We went to Scotland then too, and we spent 6 days in Scotland and 6 days or 7 days in Ireland, 6 days in Scotland. And so
You
we-
were Dale Scottish or Irish or?
Nope, no, that was just, I wanted to travel overseas. I didn't feel like I wanted to go to someplace that spoke English. And so I didn't have to have the language barrier and we really had started out to go to the UK or to England too. But that gets to be like 21 days when you start putting in 3 countries. So we just cut it back into.
Did anyone hear from you?
I have not heard a word. I saw his car yesterday. I was over at my kid's house, but
You guys looking pretty tough down by your dock
So-
today?
Yeah, it was sad kind of.
Yeah, it
I
was.
was actually gonna go jump in, but then it's like, oh, that's all 200 yards out, it would have been fine,
Yeah,
but it was pretty nasty.
I took my last water test yesterday and I could look down and see it, all the threads of algae, you know, before they clump into the bloom.
Yeah.
And I knew we were gonna get zapped. We did this morning. It started out pretty good. As soon as the sun came up, bang.
Up
Yeah,
to the top and camp out.
yeah.
I was out on the lake yesterday on the pontoon. And I didn't think lower was too bad. The channel was bad, then upper wasn't really too bad either, but then,
Yeah.
but the channel, it's
Just
just.
depends what bay you're in, like.
The Red River Sandbar area always seems to be cleaner now than our bay, the middle bay there north of Jake's. And I could see, I did my last water test. I could see both in the Hay River and the Sandbar area, you know, the algae threads before they clump together.
Yeah.
But in the middle bay, it was murky from so many algae and nutrients in there. So I knew we were gonna get zapped. We had 50 feet of algae today about noon or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Sometime, I know you shared the test results with us, but it would be nice to know what they mean and what you do. And so sometime remind me and I'll put that on there that you should report to us,
Yeah.
Okay.
you know, just kind of
The other
what
thing-
you do and because I think that would be important for people to know too.
the other thing
Yeah.
I'm wondering is, do we have, whether you've collected or other people, DNR, whatever, but do they have water samples from Lake Chetek, the headwaters, and then, as you come down, is there a place where it seems to pick up steam? Or is Chetek just
Yeah.
got a lot of phosphorus in the water and that, you see what I'm saying? Cause if
No.
we could kind of identify where it started
They-
getting worse.
They test at Barron on the Yellow River. I know that. I don't know if anybody specifically tests on the, in Chetek.
Yeah,
But they have some of that information.
I-
And we'll talk about that when we talk about strategic planning. We are swimming in data.
yeah, we
But,
gotta figure out what
yeah,
matters, right?
So which ones do you
Yeah,
use?
yeah, what's the most, cause like I read some of the stuff you sent out about the phosphorus, and I think it's really interesting information. But do we have like a threshold that we need to try to get under to
Yeah.
prevent blooms? Do we have, like, when you look at yours, it's so much like milligrams per liter, or however we're looking at that, like. If it tests at
All right.
0.3 and it would be 0.1.
Yeah,
break it
I'll,
off.
I'll put on there. I'm waiting for the results
You're
from
gonna start.
August 31st, and I'll put that on there, Grant. Maybe
All right,
I'll-
I'm gonna call the meeting to order. And let the record show
Interesting.
that there. We got a little feedback.
It's because you've got it behind your laptop. Put it to the side.
Then I gotta read to my right.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, how's that?
That
All right.
hopefully will help.
Let the record show that, Jerry, Porter is absent and Pete will be late. So if you'd put that in the minutes, please. Approval of the agenda and the minutes of 8/17.
Make a motion to approve those minutes and agenda.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner, reports and communication. Do any of the commissioners have things to report?
I guess the only thing I could report was we have a post office box in Colfax now.
Mailing address?
And so we have an official mailing address that's not at anybody's house. And Tom has a key and I have a key. I have a key just because I'm there picking up my own mail at the post office in Colfax all the time, so.
Okay.
And so
Great.
far, there's nothing in there because I don't think anybody's even used that address yet, so.
No,
PO Box 293.
Yes, I think that's right.
yeah, we should put that on the website.
Yeah, every time I go there to do that on the site, I get
Forget.
distracted by something else and change something.
Okay, just friendly reminder. Other information? Okay, I have a couple of things. First of all, I tried something and unfortunately I tried it this morning, but I sent you an email with a bunch of stuff on it that I had collected and or going to use for this meeting. And so what I'm going to try to do for each meeting is to take and have like a board packet that I send out. And then once you get the treasurer's report and stuff, if you could put it in a half page or whatever, then if you just email that to me a couple of days in advance, I'll include that. Because then what we could do, Jim, is we could put that on the website and then people in the audience on their smartphones can just like the county does, you know, on the committee meetings and stuff, and people can look at the documents and we don't have to. Then it's just another form of communication. But I included in there the Red Cedar Partnership press release. This is a press release that is put out by Dan Zier. He chairs the Red Cedar Partnership. And it's a group of DNR, lake associations, there's two farmer groups and everybody's all interested in taking in getting clean water. And so it's a good group. The annual report is out there. I will get a copy of it when it's available. The press release is kind of a synthesized version of that. There's more detail in the annual report. We didn't have a section in this year because we were too new. but Chautauqua Lakes has a section in there and it just reports on all the different bodies are there, but the press release, I thought you'd find it interesting. The other thing, I was invited to a meeting of the Red Cedar Learning Hub, which is basically a federal grant that is centered around mostly farming, in that it is about runoff. They have an initiative that they're calling Grassland 2.0. And Grassland 2.0 is about taking and encouraging farmers to pasture cattle instead of row crops. And the pasturing saves X amount of pounds of phosphorus runoff in the lake. And so one of the things that somewhere down the line is they're going to make available, and we may play some role in this. They're going to make grass-fed beef available for sale. So, we can have a little skin in that game also. But there again, I report that not that necessarily that's our deal, but we're being invited to a variety of different tables. And it's kind of interesting to know the bigger picture of what's going on around us. And that's about all I have to report. So, is there anything else? Hearing none, I'll move on. Grant, do you have a treasurer's report?
Yeah, basically, Tom and I were able to get everything set up at the credit union to get my name added to the account, so now you and I are on it.
Right.
I registered us for online banking today. So we can just log in and we'll be able to basically get the monthly statements like this emailed to us.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that's an easy way to do it. For now, since there's so few transactions, I think we can just use the online monthly statements rather than digging into QuickBooks at this point. The reporting should be easy enough. As we start to do projects and pick up transactions and stuff like that, I could see the QuickBooks thing. I also have a little bit to learn on the tax levy stuff. I did get some information that I shared with you guys just prior to the meeting. I was communicated with the Dunn County Treasurer, and then she got me connected with a gal with the state of Wisconsin who deals with lake districts and could talk me through like all the different forms we're gonna have to fill out and different things like that. So I have some stuff to learn, but basically, there's a PC 505 form that basically we'll have to fill out that says, here was the tax levy that was approved at the annual meeting. We have to do that coming up here this fall. They're due by November 15th. And then that lines us up to get paid. I need to ask her how exactly it works, but I think this is the process. January, February, and August are the 3 times the tax settlements come out. And so if we said 15,000 or whatever was approved this year, I'm assuming we get that, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, but that's what I don't know. So I'll make sure I find that out. And so basically by August 20th of 2024, we will have received all of the payments to the Lake District that's owed from what was approved at the annual meeting.
Right.
So it's jumping ahead a little bit. I can wait to talk about the fiscal year, but I mean, to me, it would probably make the most sense to keep all your payments from one annual meeting in the same fiscal year. So if we're always going to have it the first weekend in August and we get our final payment August 20th, maybe our fiscal year should be like September 1st, because then at that annual meeting, we'll be like 95% done with the spending for the year. And we could report to everybody on that. But honestly, I'm willing to just try to make it work however you guys would think is best too. I mean, that date is just something in my head that would kind of make sense, but definitely up for discussion what you guys think would be right there. But other than that, the balance was $30,882.67 as of August 31st, which this statement is, and the only spending that I know That's happened is Tom was able to get us set up with the Colfax Messenger.
Okay,
And
so
so
what was that balance again?
$3,882.67 as of August 31st.
One more time for the slow learners.
3,882.67.
Okay,
Okay. Did we ever get a bill from the Menominee School District?
nope.
Okay. I didn't want to say that too loud, but I mean, it's,
I know they've been going through some transition, struggling to find an activities and athletic director, and had a resignation, and a new gal started like right as the school year started. So she's in control of all of that stuff. So I don't know if that's gonna get lost or not.
yeah, well, we'll just see how it turns out.
Yeah, we'll wait for the bill.
That, exactly. Well, when we get down to the treasurer's report, the fiscal year, we'll talk more about that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Grant?
No.
Okay. See none, we're moving on.
Thank you for your patience, though.
No problem.
That's okay, I didn't get it either. The first item on the discussion and action agenda is discussion of no wake, the no wake buoys, Bob Bachelor's.
Did we ever do public comment?
Oh. You're right, I skipped right over that. I apologize. Does anybody want to make a public comment or speak to the group on any topic? On the agenda would be good, but. Maybe not on the agenda. Go ahead.
I do have one as well that was sent via email.
Good evening, my name's.
Push the
Chad.
little button on there.
Right here.
It has a little guy. Yeah, there you go.
got it.
Good evening, my name's Chad Bartlett, I live on 836th Avenue. And I'm just here because I was at the annual meeting and I want to start attending these meetings. I think it's great that we have a Lake District. I think it's positive that we're moving forward. I just have some concerns, maybe that we need to possibly, or the Lake District should take a look at maybe getting an advocacy group. I think that there's a lot of property owners that are paying taxes. We have a green lake, we get it. Some people can feel we can clean it up. Some people feel it's not going to be green. However, the scientists and conferences and you want to go to and have guest speakers and do it, that's fine. But I think taxpayers really want to see something tangible happen for their tax money. Not a hope in one hand and a wish in the other, okay? I think moving forward to try to clean things up, being green is positive. Talk about some runoff, some cows. Bill Gates has a different program on cows. So, I mean, however you want to slice that. I think there's some issues with some weeds. I think we should take a look at maybe getting some sort of plan to cut some of these weeds. We know that if we have water that moves through, we're not going to have the algae bloom. A lot of people like to go up the river and go fishing. People at the sandbar. I live on that end of the sandbar and we get weeds, whatever. But I see a lot of people up there enjoying the water. And so as they go up and down the river, they're cutting the weeds that grow, especially late in the summer, and then they just move to everybody's property. I think that's become an issue. So I think as an advocacy group, we can maybe get some people that have some different ideas, whether it's weeds, dredging. I think the Lake Champney area, that's a boat landing that cannot be used. If we're going to harvest weeds, we're going to need a place to remove the weeds. Champney Park and that boat landing would be a really good place to do that. I know that we could do some dredging, and what I mean as far as the advocacy group, you know, as far as getting some costs put together. So when we come to this annual meeting, we can have a vote on that if that's what the taxpayers want to do. And maybe we don't have 30 ideas. Maybe we try to narrow it down throughout the year through these meetings. and have people vote on it and what makes sense. Because as a taxpayer, people don't mind paying money for something that they can feel tangible. If you think you're gonna just talk about cleaning up the green water all the time, I don't think you're gonna get a lot of movement. You're gonna get a lot more disgruntlement, I think. But those are just some of my thoughts that I had. I'm not sure what you guys' thoughts were as far as being on the board. I mean, I know I tried emailing Jerry Porter several times. It was crickets. Maybe I had the wrong email address. It was the email address that was on the Facebook website page. People have commented that they can't make comments on the Facebook page, but then I went to your website and I see the PO boxes on there and you can make a comment on your website page, like a contact us type of deal. And I'm not sure who is responding on those, you know? So I think communication back with the taxpayers would be great. Those are some of my thoughts. What are your thoughts about an advocacy group, or how do you hear these ideas? Because it sounds like just a 5-year, gonna get some guest speakers. Let's go to some conferences and see what we can do, get some grants and talk about runoff and studies and gather data. And then you just said, I don't know what we should do. Okay, well, that's great. I mean, if you want to do the scientists and figure out the green, I think that's positive, but I think maybe there's some other things we need to do. Dredging is one of them, and doing the weeds, I think, are some hardcore things that taxpayers might get on board with. I see a lot of you shaking your heads, and maybe you're all already down that road. I don't know, but those are just some of the thoughts that I had.
We're more in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. I
Yeah.
just, we need to talk about that. And
Right.
is there a channel where people can come with ideas and ask how we can put costs together and then let the taxpayers vote on those?
Right. One of the things we just did is we just wrote a grant and submitted it, the first step about putting together a strategic plan. And the first step of that strategic plan would be to go out to the property owners, schedule anywhere from 4 to 6 meetings and sit down and get people's ideas.
Right.
And I'm sure dredging will be one of them. I'm sure weeds will be another one, and green will be, but maybe there's something else.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Until we
Right.
ask. The other thing that those meetings will do, I think, for us as a group, will give us a sense of where people are at. Okay, and so we can take and put together a strategic plan, prioritize our activities so that we can come to the whole idea is to get to the annual meeting.
To
with
vote on these projects
with-
or whatever they might
one or
be.
two projects that we can handle in a year.
For sure.
And then we keep moving
For sure.
forward and stepping
For
forward.
sure.
What all of us, I think, have been dealing with is everybody has a whole bunch of ideas.
And that's why we
But-
need to
but
narrow them down.
we
And,
need-
we got 10 months until the next meeting. So it's TikTok, 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 and you hear people all the time. I count 5, 6 people here. I got a letter from some gentleman that lives down the road from me because he bought property down by Champney Park and he was complaining about dredging. I'm like, I don't know who your realtor is, but they didn't tell you the truth,
Right,
Yeah.
well,
I mean, I feel so bad for him, you know what I mean?
and part of some of the people that we want to bring in as speakers is to be able to speak to the issue. For example, weed cutting. We had a request from a person that wanted, they were even gonna pay for their own weed cutting.
Yeah, I think people will pay money. I mean,
The
there's a
only-
lot of people
The
talking
only
about
thing
that.
is the DNR won't give you the permit to do that unless you have a management plan.
Yes, yes,
And so, and that's really where we're headed long term. Now,
Right.
That's gonna take 2 years to get to that management plan, but that's where we're headed. And so I think all of us are a little hesitant to champion projects until we get a better lay of the land as far as what can we get support for and those kinds of things.
well, I think we can talk about a lot of things, you know what I mean? And we can stand around and talk. My wife always says, guys are great because they'll stand around and talk about anything, but they don't do anything. And, like, it takes their wife to come along and say, get that done. When are you gonna clean out the garage? When are you gonna take care of the car? I have something happening this weekend, clean the house, right? I mean, so we talk about a lot of things to death, and I don't know about you guys, but I hate meetings. I hate corporate. I hate morning meetings with everybody. It seems like nothing gets done. Everybody wants to hear themselves talk. And we need to have some more action. I understand that maybe I'm trying to force the issue, and I don't mean to force the issue, but I see exactly where you're coming from. I completely do.
Chad,
Tom,
I think your ideas here hit the nail on the head.
and how do we move toward that to getting
Well,
people to bring their ideas,
you
and
know,
then we get people to kind of
When
vote
I
on
was
that?
working, the war cry was.
Yeah, yeah.
When they came to me and said, Tom, this is what we need you to do, okay? And the pushback always was, geez, how am I gonna do that? The response was, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time.
Right.
And the toughest thing for this group to do here is to stay patient and to stay focused, all right? We're gonna get hit in the next year or two with a million different ideas. Most of them are all gonna be
For
good.
sure, and I think
But
that's
what
why
we
if you
have
have
to
an
do-
advocacy group, they can channel those in,
Yep.
correct?
But what we have to do is.
And it's
stay
not taking
focused.
up what the focus is of the
And
board members
What we're
here.
gonna have to do is rely on what the science will allow us to do. And what the finances will allow us to do. I mean. We can do tons. But. People are gonna go, holy moly.
Well, I think that's what you
gonna
need
hit
to
our
do. I think
taxes.
that's what you need to do. You say, okay, if we're going to dredge weeds, here's what it costs if we outsource it. You know what I mean? Is that something you want to champion? Or dredging, you know, I understand exactly where you're coming from. We gotta take it step at a time, but
Al, I have a question. So last month at the meeting, we talked about two things that I think kind of answer your question a little bit is. Like Al said, having the focus groups and then be able to create a survey. Where we can send it out to everybody on the lake and say, rank. If you had to prioritize these projects, how would you do it?
yeah.
1 through
Right.
10 or 1 through 5. So I really like that idea and I believe that'll be coming down the pipe here. The other thing, I was kicking around this today a little bit. Al talked last week about the idea of forming ad hoc committees. So basically, if you're passionate about dredging, let's say, let's leverage that, right? Let's use the smart people that live on the lake that are ambitious and want to do something. Let's do that. So my question to you, Al, is what's the process of forming an ad hoc committee? Can I make a motion at one of these meetings to say, I want to lead the formation of an ad hoc committee for dredging Tainter, or is that out of bounds with the rules?
No, that you can certainly make that motion and if it passes, I would say that before you make that motion, let's have a discussion so that we can. Ad hoc committees that I've found work the best have, number one, a singular purpose
Mm-hmm,
and then an ending date.
yep,
Otherwise, they go on like your morning meetings.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Everybody
just a
just
lot-
talks.
So
Nothing
we
gets
gotta
done.
have a what's the deliverable at the end, whether it's a recommendation or usually it's at committees like that, usually study and make a recommendation for the consideration.
And maybe that's something after you get the survey results back, because you can't take 10 projects on, right?
Yeah, we're not
You
gonna
just
do that
finally
at
got your
once.
little budget together, what it's gonna cost just to run this little thing throughout the year. I get
Look at
it.
the
That's
work
what the
that it
annual
took to
meeting
get
did, right?
$15,000.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So.
it's just like how you build up a business, you know, you start in year 1 and hopefully we're better in year 2 and then
Right,
year
right.
3, right? And so I think your ideas are good. I have a bunch of them typed down on
No, I'm
notes to
sure you guys all
discuss,
do it, just,
you know,
I don't know
for
how we,
speakers and
how you
stuff.
gather those ideas from the taxpayers.
At some point, we gotta put those meeting dates on the calendar when we're gonna meet with the public. And we
Right?
gotta get the ball rolling and then we gotta figure out like. I think it would be the right process and if Al thinks it's right too, to just. Have conversations about specific committees.
I think
Or do we
surveys are
do some
great and then
outreach
try
and
to
say
come
like, if
back.
you wanna be on an ad hoc committee. You know, contact whoever. And so if I can get 5 people that say, I'll be part of that, I'll be part of that, specifically focused on the dredging project, I'll help. Get the bids, I'll help contact
Right.
contractors, I'll help do all the work.
And as the
Then I would come in here
parliamentarian
as a motion.
scold, I think we're
Yep.
drifting away from our published agenda, so
Yep.
we probably shouldn't be talking
Right.
about this without it having been.
All right, well, I'm
published.
glad we brought
Fair
that. We had the conversation. I think you guys
Yeah.
have somewhat of an idea, you know, but to vote on stuff is the annual meeting and we need to have those costs together. We shouldn't waste the commissioner's time. Cause you guys are looking at big picture. You need soldiers to get the bids, gather the numbers and present.
We got your name.
Thank you, Chad.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Apologize, it went a little longer than what we normally do. You looked like you were ready to spring up.
Adam Mux, E 64648 67th Avenue. I've done quite a bit of personal research in the last month or so with a company called Aquarius, and they manufacture and sell wheat harvesting equipment. They have a lot of, they're a Wisconsin-based company, and they do a lot of work with Wisconsin Lake districts in Wisconsin, and they sell equipment all over the country. Their personnel is willing to talk to the Lake District and present to the Lake District. They're also stating that 50% of the cost can be covered with grants, and they are highly involved in the Wisconsin DNR lake management plans. So I've done a lot of research and I've had contact with that company, and if it would be something that the board would be up for hearing, they'd be willing to present to us, to the board at some point, so.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'll plan to put an email together to you guys, just on what I've come to this far.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam.
Just one more note on the communication that Chad brought up, that the, when you fill out that form on the, website, it comes to all of us, I believe, right?
Yeah, it does. I haven't added you guys yet,
Okay,
but it comes to everybody, so.
and so if you send us an email, you'll get a response. If you don't, then you should call one of us. Call me, okay? Because we should, the only ones I really don't respond to are sales people that are selling
Yeah,
websites or whatever. It's like, well, we already have a website. Why do we want to buy another one? But anyway,
and if you want to contact an individual commissioner, there's the list of the commissioners, and all of our individual email addresses
right,
are on there. And essentially, they're almost all the same as Jim@tainterlakedistrict.org, Al at Tainter Lake.
well, mine's A Brown. but-
Yeah, you got to make it different.
And you
Yeah.
can just copy and paste that into a
Yep.
browser.
Yep.
But anyway, and so we will get back to you if you send us an email.
And I think we both contact or replied to you, right, Bob?
Yeah, I was gonna add that, kudos to you guys.
Good deal.
And it's kind of a thing with me is that information, the best information is at these meetings. So if you want to advocate for anything, get people to come to these meetings, because that's where you really hear what goes on. I can send you a 15-page email and it won't make as much sense as spending an hour and a half at this meeting and asking a question, or grabbing one of us after the meeting or something like that, and Facebook is not a two-way piece of communication. It's pushing out information, and that, and the other thing is, remember, when you email one of us, that's all you're doing is emailing one of us. You're not, because none of us have any power, any more power than anybody else, except at a meeting. I just wanted to make that clear, that if you email me and I respond to you, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for the board.
And one more thing just about Facebook, and I'll probably bring it up each time. The Tainter Lake District Facebook page is designed just to push information out about what the district is doing. It's not a conversation forum. There are a couple of Facebook pages that are perfectly suited for having conversation back and forth about the lake. So that's where that should happen. There's plenty of other forums available, so.
Right, thank you.
Okay, the video, if you go to tainterlakedistrict.org and click, I think it's under meetings. It's actually, just click on the YouTube page and they'll all be there. I actually try to do it. Sometimes Al will say, I just sit here and wait and post it immediately after the meeting so people can watch it if they want to, catch all this riveting excitement that evening, so.
That, well, and they're posted, the meeting notices are posted in Facebook, on our website, and in the Colfax Messenger. Okay, so that's where those are pushed out. Anything else?
I have a letter
Okay,
that I would like to read. All right, this was an email that was sent to us from Eric Peterson, who lives on 841st Avenue in Colfax. It was originally sent to homeowners and Tainter Lake residents, and it was sent via one of the other lake Facebook pages, and then it was copy and pasted and sent to our Facebook page. It says, I am new to the area as of December 2022. I don't have the answers to our disappearing lake. However, I do know that our current situation is unacceptable and needs to be addressed now. This letter is going out to lakeside residents on 841st and 836th Avenues. The residences are within walking distance of my home and are immediately or soon to be affected by low water levels, and like the rest of Tainter Lake, inflicted with the blue-green algae blooms. As you are aware, the creation of Tainter Lake District Board by the Dunn County oversees the Tainter Lake Rehab District. Per board member Tom Bills, everything will be determined by vote of the people in the Lake District. 508 signatures were collected in order to establish Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District. That sounds like there's plenty of interest in addressing this issue. I realize that I am not nearly as qualified and educated on the shallowing of Tainter Lake and the algae bloom as a lot of residents. However, that doesn't diminish my passion for resolving our issue. For some research, a lake district is a specialized unit of government established to manage a lake district. The district has the ability to levy taxes. Our state representative Clint Moses, Assembly District 29 email, and he includes Rep Moses' email and phone number. Representative Moses called me on 8/30/23 and informed me that his main role in helping us move forward is to provide guidance and help us in securing filing state government grants, which will be needed to fund our efforts. He seemed very interested in helping us out. The Wisconsin DNR agent assigned to our Tainter Lake issues, Alex Smith, and a phone number and email address is included. And then our board members' email addresses are included. And as for our pea soup, he includes cyanobacteria problem. Alex Smith of the Wisconsin DNR responded to me with the following. The algae blooms and sedimentation fill-in are related. They are both the result of sediment and nutrients, primarily phosphorus, washing into the lake from large land areas that drain into the lake. Other claims our current situation is a result of Excel's Dam, Cedar Falls Hydroelectric Plant, which prevents the lake water from dropping and results in stagnation and accumulation sediment, which is slowly causing the water depths to drop and blue-green algae to flourish. According to Excel, Tainter Lake is expected to stay at its normal water level throughout the 3-year construction project, which started in 2022. My understanding is that the dam has been present for over 100 years. Recent upgrades beginning in 2022 by Excel are aimed to provide a more flood-proof and environmentally friendly structure. I don't have enough knowledge to comment on the pros and cons of the dam. There's also a concern that the cyanobacteria algae blooms pose a serious health risk and has resulted in the death of pets. The Red Cedar River Watershed website states the following: harmful effects from algal blooms. The toxins released by the blue-green algae can be very harmful to people and pets. Many of these toxins are powerful neurotoxin and if ingested in large enough quantities, can be fatal. We often hear of family dogs dying after swimming and ingesting lake water during a severe algal bloom. These toxins can also cause severe skin irritation after exposure, and people near the water during severe blooms have occasionally reported respiratory problems. Although the level of risks is not certain when eating fish or shellfish caught in a river or lake during a severe algal bloom, they should be consumed in moderation. Additionally, the guts and organs of the fish where toxins can accumulate in higher quantities should not be eaten, and care should be taken when cleaning the fish to prevent any fluids or tissue from the organs from contaminating the fillets. For starters, I feel it is critical to reestablish the Champney boat landing, along with increasing the water depth for residents who live on the northern part of the lake. The water has become so shallow that we cannot even launch a kayak from our dock. We need to dredge and reestablish our water channels. The DNR representative informed me that the DNR water grants cannot pay for dredging, so Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District Board would need to find other funding. I know one common response is to raise taxes for those who are considered to have lakefront access. Take a poll of the homeowners on the northern part of the lake. We do not have lakefront access. A study by UW-Whitewater on the economic impact of the poor water quality in Lake Mahnomen and Lake Tainter have demonstrated that improving water quality for both lakes would increase property values and subsequently reduce property taxes by holding tax revenues at a constant level. By increasing property values on Tainter Lake and Lake Mahnomen to comparable frontage values of other lakes may reduce taxes from between $37.96 and $70.56. Increasing the quality of the lake is important for lakefront property owners for appreciation purposes, but also for reducing property taxes on Tainter and Mahnomen without changing the tax base for lake homeowners. In conclusion, poor water quality in Tainter Lake and Lake Mahnomen creates tremendous cost to the surrounding areas. The lake presents great opportunity for Menominee in economic terms. Improvements in water quality will lead to higher property values, increased economic activity, and ultimately more jobs. Aside from the economic advantages of clean lakes, there are countless and less tangible benefits to the community. Clean lakes can trigger a greater sense of pride in the area, and the community can become more cohesive with events motivated by its rediscovered natural resources. Restoring Tainter Lake and Lake Mahnomen water quality means economic and community prosperity for Menominee and those who own properties on the lake. Look around. More and more homes around Tainter Lake are going up for sale. For those homeowners who are not currently affected by decreasing water depth, it's only a matter of time before you will be impacted. Based on photos I've seen from 10 years ago, the fill-in is rapid. Check out the photos at the end of the letter. They are back-to-back photos comparing 2021 fill-in with 2023. This fill-in is rapid. The shallowing and algal blooms have been going on for decades. The prevailing vibe of the residents is one of cynicism and pessimism. I am hopeful that the Tainter Lake Rehab District Board will provide much needed leadership and keep the public informed of the progress being made. I feel like a quote from the flyer on the Friends of the Red Cedar Basin sums it up perfectly. When you tell people you live on Tainter Lake, you do not feel you need to add something like, well, it doesn't get too bad until July or August. The flyer states we all do it. We make excuses and just accept that during the best summer weather, our lake is disgusting mess. Stop it. Let's work together and do something about it. Funding, research, and passion will drive this train forward. Please reach out to the Tainter Lake District Rehabilitation Board, neighbors, state representatives, and DNR. Thank you, Eric Peterson, 841st Avenue, Colfax, Wisconsin. Eric includes several pictures of the lake on the north end where it is filled in. That's it.
Okay. All right. We'll move on unless somebody wants to respond to that. Okay. Bob, you're up. Just to give, come on up, just to give a little introduction, this is Bob Batchelor. He's been to, I think this is his third meeting that he's spoke at least three. And Bob is the volunteer for the buoy placement. And we all have your email, Bob, that you sent out with your recommendations. And so if you would just summarize that and then make your points, please.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe a couple of points to respond to these guys too. I like what Chad was saying. But one thing to add to that was, I remember Al had a real good point here that some of this planning and meeting and talking and stuff is kind of aimed at establishing baselines that we can actually report progress on. And I think that's a real good idea as far as, you know, raising that next point, you know, because ever since this project started, what I've always been telling guys is this project will probably work real good if people get involved in it. And it's probably not going to work very well at all if people don't. So I think we should all get out there and start trying to sell this thing, because it's important. I think it's important enough to show up for an hour or two, you know. And going on with that too, I was wondering that when we were gathering those signatures and stuff, you guys were talking about trying to gather a constituent list of email addresses. I wonder if that went on at all, because I think if we could maybe make a group email or something like that, send out some emails, or maybe, you know, I've got some issues too that I might end up politicking on. And I don't know if there's any issues about me gaining access to that to try to spread the word of things that I feel strongly about, to get my opinion out there.
Yeah, we'd probably keep it just for the group.
Okay. Okay.
It'd work best that way.
Yeah. Then, yeah, so I've been, dealing with, maintaining buoys so far for the last, I don't know, 3 years or something. I think this is my third season. We're gonna have to take them out here pretty soon. And I'm real interested in exploring, the possibility of moving the responsibility for that from, currently it's, the responsibility is the Tainter Town Board. That's where the ordinance lives, you know, so if you get a ticket for a no wake zone, they're gonna go against the town board ordinance. And they're supposed to be responsible for maintenance costs and that kind of thing, but it's in my experience been almost impossible to get response from them. Those guys are not interested in having this at all, to the point where they've actually said that no, we don't have anything to do with it. But I say yes, and people that actually know, like the Tainter Town Board planner, agrees with me that, yeah, that ordinance is what regulates the buoys. And I think it would be a much cleaner implementation of that if we took that over, so that the people that we have to respond to are the people that are affected by the buoys and know what's going on and that kind of thing. So there's some few issues on that, you know, there's, besides just the ordinance, there's memos of understanding between the DNR and the sheriff's department to provide enforcement for that. And there's also the question of whether this board can actually make ordinances like that. I think we were talking about that, Al, where you were saying it's policy and I don't know how we go about that. I guess we should do some research on that. You know, in your bylaws, I had noticed that there's a section under powers of the district that mentions regulating boat traffic. That you have the power to regulate boat traffic. But anyway, we should possibly look into that. We've got a few different issues. One is that when they made that ordinance, they placed GPS coordinates in about where those should be set. But the way they actually did it was if you actually go by the GPS coordinates, you end up being real close to the shoreline for each one of the markers. And I believe it's best to keep those in the center. And if that ordinance came over to us or to the district, or if the district recommended it to the town, I'd like to get those GPS coordinates adjusted so that we're actually dealing with where the placement of the buoy should be. That would help me out technically, or anybody else that's doing it. And there's also been the issue of you know, when we made that, there was a lot of politicking that went on. That went on for years. I don't know if you guys remember talking about whether we should have a no wake zone or not. Some people wanted no wake zones. Some people didn't want them. Some people wanted to make the whole lake no wake. Some people wanted to make it a 10 horsepower lake, and different places about where it was and where they should be and all that kind of stuff. But it actually ended up so that the buoys are pretty much where, in other words, it's against the law to make a wake within 100 feet of the shoreline. And so basically what they did was they took every part of the lake that was like 200 feet wide and made those areas a no wake zone because it'd be illegal anyway. And in my personal opinion, I think that was a good compromise that everybody really could live with. And so I'd like to leave it that way, but we always thought that, and we told people while we were politicking about that, that's something that could be adjusted down the road as things were needed. But it turns out that the town board doesn't want anything to do with this, doesn't want to bring the issue up again. I mean, that was years and meetings and meetings and meetings. If you get, I don't know if you were around for that time, but so they don't want to get involved with it anymore. But there are a couple on the margins. There's some places that I think it could be adjusted a little bit. And if we brought that over to us, either brought it over to us or brought our advisory capacity to the town, I think that would really, I think it's time for that. Plus it's time for some equipment maintenance. I mean, we've been using those for, I think we put that thing in place in 2007. And we're still using the same buoys and they're starting to not work so much. And the town has already said that they're not going to give us any more money. So we're pretty much out of the water there. So I think it could use a little maintenance. And then there's a issue of equipment. So far, we've been doing this on a volunteer basis, and you know, I can't promise how much longer I'm gonna be doing this, and I'm kind of in the position where I have a pontoon that kind of is old enough that it can be used as a utility boat. And I've noticed over the years that more and more guys are getting some pontoon boats that would not be willing to be used that way anymore. And so I'm not exactly clear if it's guaranteed that we have somebody we're gonna be able to find somebody that's gonna do that. So I think it could be a point to look into either subcontracting that and getting some prices or grants to take care of that, whether it would be like a dedicated boat or racks or you know, whatever. Anyway, those are some issues that I think could be looked into. And I think we could really benefit by, that's my personal opinion, and I think we should explore it. Is an issue of configuration of those buoys, because I don't know if you guys, the guys here that are experienced boaters, I think kind of realize that the way most no wake zones are comprised is more or less you have a kind of a gate system. So you put in 2 buoys where you go in, 2 buoys where you come out. And then if you have to mark it in between, like we've got 3 zones right now, and one of the zones has a middle marker. So then you put a middle marker 1, and then you go into it through a gate, go out of it through a gate, and you know where the zone is. I've noticed a lot of confusion, including some by, remember Jamie McDermott, the warden, has come by and said, oh, you're making a wake here. Oh, but no, this isn't a wake zone here. This is a wake zone back there and a wake zone back there. And that kind of configuration helps clear that particular issue up considerably. I mean, plus it has a tendency to channel people into the center of the channel too while they're traversing, which helps a little bit on some erosion problems and stuff too. But anyway, these are all issues. Now, Al had kind of asked me to give a quick like rundown on what we do here. And so this is kind of the rig up that I stick on my boat. And then if you go to the next one, here's another shot too. Keep on going. So basically I pull the buoys up. These buoys are like 6 feet tall, about this far around with plastic coating and about 1.5 feet of concrete on the bottom and then foam on the top. So it floats up and down. So then I pull those up and then we end up with 2 cables. If you notice there, one is a cable that the buoy is attached to, and the other one is just a nylon line for lifting. And so we lift them up that way, and we have 100-pound concrete blocks there. They originally had put those concrete blocks, and they had the idea of keeping them down there permanently. So they detach the buoy, drop the cable on the bottom, and then go fish it out every spring. But the fishing out operation, the attachment to it, particularly without having the correct GPS coordinates to start off with, because you're off to the side. Actually, it worked, but it took a lot longer. So we just stick on that extra nylon line. And if you go to the next one, you can kind of see there how we coil up the nylon line and put That's the bottom of the buoy. Put it onto a ring. And then wrap them up and power wash them. You go to the next one. Into kind of like a pill there is, or 100 pounds. So anyway. I had one possible idea that I thought could work, and that would be, you're talking about an ad hoc committees. I almost feel like this would be worthy of a standing committee situation where you could report, where a committee chairman could report back on issues if they came up, because buoys will probably be an ongoing issue. And what I imagine that we would have to do is, or what you guys would have to do would be to like boil all this stuff down into, not all of it, but at least a starting point of it into something that you could present at the annual meeting to vote on. Right? What, like
Yeah.
whether the community would like to take it over for one thing, whether it's
Let's see
possible.
where the discussion goes tonight, Bob.
Right.
Well, we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob. I'm sure there'll be more questions, but
Yeah, I did have I wrote a fairly lengthy email that I don't know how you could publish it, or if anybody's interested in reading it. It goes into some of the history and elaborates on some of the things.
yeah, we all have that, so. Okay. Discussion.
Well, I think while Bob was talking there, I did go and look, and the DNR does allow lake districts to regulate buoys and no wake zones and all of that stuff. So I don't know how any type of municipality can do it, and lake districts and rehabilitation districts can do it. So it's something that if we brought it up at the annual meeting, I think it makes sense. If the township is really not interested, and it totally makes sense. Also reading about it, where like a no wake zone could be placed, it's not 100 mile or 100 feet from the shoreline, it's 100 feet from a dock, which also might affect where these have been placed, because there are docks that stick out 10, 12, 20 feet. And if it's been measured from the shoreline, that means that they're probably not in the right spot based on the regulations on the DNR site, from what I read. So, but yeah, it just, there's a lake district, totally makes sense that this would be something that a lake district should probably be in charge of. And I don't know that there would be, unless we find an old junker pontoon that the lake district wants to purchase to use for this. I could actually see there are two firms now that are trying to do dock removal and placement. It would be perfect time for them, when they're placing docks at the same time, to contract with them to put the buoys out. And the other point that Bob brings up, it makes total sense that these are usually marked, like he said, at the entrance with a couple of buoys, and then if you have a center one, otherwise it's true, you don't really know where that starts and stops, and we should be marking them properly. And it could be that there's a grant opportunity to pay for, replacing those buoys and getting new ones. So those are my thoughts.
I'll say a couple things. I understand where Jim and Bob are coming from, and appreciate Bob for all the hard work he does, because I'm sure those things are pretty slimy. But I think we want to be careful on this, and that if we do take it over from Tainter Township, that we don't end up being the buoy police. Because I think I wasn't around when this thing went through all the motions and everything, but I think it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, and I just don't want us being the enforcement arm or scheduling the DNR in here on a such and such date. I'm a little nervous about that part.
Grant?
I agree with you, Chuck. We have no way to enforce it.
Yeah, I think you'd have to leave it within the DNR and the sheriff's department to enforce it. I like the idea of if it's something we decide that we want to do. We essentially have to work with the town of Tainter to make it our responsibility. One thing, Bob, is this something that you're hoping to, like, this fall be the last time you have to go pull them out? Or is that something you're willing to do up until our next annual meeting where we could actually vote on some things and, you know, have a plan going forward?
Yeah, if nothing changed, then it'll be, at least another season.
Okay, because Jim, you got a good idea, like with the dock people, they have the
Yeah,
lifts right on the end of their barges. They could
Yep.
get those things up and down
And,
real easy.
and they're out there in the spring and the fall anyways.
yeah.
We have a couple, bids on those,
And this probably isn't the most popular thing I'm going to say, but when we were petitioning people on the lake last year, I had a lot of people talk to me about the no wake zone. And I had more people who expressed an opinion about the no wake zone mention that they wanted the entire channel to be a no wake zone. Starting at Pine Point all the way to the north end of the channel. Now, doesn't matter to me. I don't care. But if we're doing surveys, maybe that it's time to add that to a later survey. That's just my thought on it. It's just something to consider.
And following up on what both Tom and Chuck said, I mean, the Lake District wouldn't be responsible for enforcement. Town of Tanner is not responsible for
Yeah.
enforcement. They're just their ordinance. We would have an ordinance and it would be up to the DNR and the sheriff's department to do the enforcement.
Can we copy and paste their ordinance?
Well,
Yeah,
we
I
can,
think
well, we'd have to look at it, but I think that's something we should look at. And like I said, reading through the DNR documentation, if those buoy positions are measured from the shoreline and not, I mean, the no wake criteria is it's 100 feet from docks, not from the shore. So it may be that those are in the wrong places anyway, and it may mean that more of that channel then is
Right.
no wake actually.
Yep, Bob.
respond to that?
Yep. Good. You can just do it from there.
Yeah. It's kind of independent, like, it's not required to have a no wake zone where you're within 100 feet. In other words, you could have a no wake zone someplace and have another narrow channel, like say between the place, peninsula there. There's a small, channel through there that some people speed through on plane. So it's not required. It just is the way they decided to do it. Take generally speaking, the areas that are 200 feet and go at that. But you're still responsible for not making a no wake zone away from the docks. In any case, outside of the no wake zone.
Pete, did you have anything that you want?
Yeah, I think that it makes all kinds of sense for the Lake District to have some kind of jurisdiction over the buoys. Particularly since Tainter Township washed their hands of it. But my question right now is, who enforces them as they are? Is it DNR, is it the sheriff, or is it?
Well, like I said, the town of Tainter has memos of understanding with both the DNR and the sheriff's department. And it's always been an issue for Tainter Town to try to talk them into being out there more often. There's a lot of people who think they're under patrol. There's probably a lot of people. Like I laid out in that email, there's a lot of politics in this. You're perfectly right. There's a lot of politics behind it. There's a lot of feelings out there. And I feel like if you guys decide to take this up, your best position on it is just to move it over without any big changes at all, because you're gonna run into a lot of questions.
Okay, it seems to me then that as we go through our education and information gathering process under the grant that requested has been done, that this would be a real lively topic of consideration. And
Yeah,
between now and the annual meeting, we ought to be able to come up with a
Right.
pretty good sense of what people would like to do. For example, the entire channel being a no wake zone. I can live with that.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot simpler, like Bob's saying, just to copy the exact same ordinance that was already passed, start there. And then if we get to one of these focus group meetings and that becomes a thing, we want to make it all the way, then you would
Yeah.
potentially adjust it there. If we try to open up that can of worms as we take it over, I mean, it just could all fall. I guess you probably would default back to the original one, but. And just the other thing I'll throw out there, if something did happen, I have a pontoon that I don't care too much about. So if you needed help next spring, if I had that set up, I could round up a group of friends and I would just take that on for you. So if that's like something that we need to do next spring, just let me know.
Wow, yeah, but really, Grant, I don't understand why the members of the Lake District would care.
But we would have to vote on the funding for,
Yeah, but the funding is gonna be minimal.
yeah, so we
Really,
can cover it and
New buoys,
for,
you know,
Yeah.
and if we contracted it.
Let's back up a second, because I think we're talking about solutions and we really haven't gotten to what the statement of the problem is. One of the things I think that before we do anything is that we need to talk to the town of Tainter. It's good that we have a good sense of where we are. I going into this, I don't know what the sense of where they are, and I'm a little concerned that there's ordinances and responsibilities that people are really quick to dish off. And my concern too is that the best of both worlds would be that we would be what Chad called an advocacy group. We would advocate and be responsible for the technical side of it. And the township would be responsible for the ordinance side of it, because they already have the ordinance.
Yeah.
And so it would be my suggestion that before the fallback position, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm getting the sense that this group would gladly or reluctantly assume the responsibility. But I don't know that you go into negotiations leading with that philosophy. And the other thing is that I think that we could do, and again, I'm just speaking for myself, is to say that we would certainly want to partner with the township. Yeah, we might be doing a little more of the lifting, but then we don't have to redo the memos of understanding. We don't have to, that's 15 more meetings that we don't have to have. We can survey as a part of our strategic plan. We can have a question. So what do you think about the buoys? No, that's the wrong question to ask because you'll get too many different answers. But the question would be, are the buoys in the right place? Or something very specific. And so we have a sense of where that is, and then we can take information to the township and say, okay, these coordinates need to be done, or, and the other thing that we can do as a group, as an advocacy group, is to say, we can go and say, we're willing to put in half of the money for the new, buoys. What about you guys? And then there's a shared responsibility. And then, because one of the things that I think is important for the township, and I've heard this not only from Bob, but other people, that there's a lot of tax base around that lake in the Tainter Township. People, and Chad said it tonight, what are we getting for our money that we're paying? Well, you're paying a hell of a lot more taxes to the town of Tainter. I only pay 300 because I only got about 10 feet in the township, but you're paying a lot of money to the township and we all live on the lake. What are we getting for that money, the extra money that we're paying? And some of the roads aren't all that good. That's an editorialization. I apologize. But but my point is this, is that I'd rather be a partner than the sole owner of it. Now, that's me. We can start that if you want to. I'd be willing to go to the town board. Tom's our representative, and start there and see what happens. If we get shot down, then we can always say, well, fine.
They'd have to rewrite the ordinance
Right.
because it states in the ordinance, as I'm reading it, that they are responsible for the maintenance and placement of those buoys.
I'm sure if we gave them a donation, they wouldn't turn it down, would they?
No, but here's part of the problem is that if it's not codified some way, if the district feels that this is an important thing, you want to make sure that you're in control of it. Otherwise, you've ceded that authority. Because one of the things is that, you know, the town of Tainter, a portion of it's on the lake, a big portion of it is nowhere on the water. So it's not as important to any of those other residents. So they might not care, or they might say, you know what? I want to blast my boat, my new wake boat down that channel as fast as I want to go. And the few times I'm on there, whereas, you know, we represent lake owners who are on that body of water. So I think it's, and again, this is part of the discussion. I think it's far more important that we're in control of that than ceding that to the township, is my thought. I'll wrestle you for it.
Nah, those days are over. Okay, so what's the wishes of the board?
I think it's come up a couple times that this would be one of those conversation topics when we have those listening sessions or whatever we're going to have. As Tom mentioned, the thing I hear about all the time from people I talk to, what's the district up to? Boy, you got to do something about those buoys. I'm getting all my shoreline eroded. People are either ignoring it, or they need to be here, or they need to be there. People talk to me about that almost more than the green water, because they're used to the green water at this point. But the buoys seem to get more, I get more conversation anecdotally about those than anything else about, and I'll say it comes up almost every time I get into some Lake District conversation. There's something about, you got to do something about the buoy placement. But so that would be a great, if we're gonna, you know, like we talked about, getting that feedback from people and And in getting some, that would be one of those topics that we should get more opinion from. And whether and what they think about the district taking that over and having that potential additional cost.
Either way, it's nothing that the seven of us can decide on
Mhm.
ourselves, right? It's gonna have to come to a vote at a district meeting or at an
Well-
annual meeting, right?
Well, it's one of our powers. We can take those duties on. I mean,
Okay, all right,
The annual meeting, it asks we have to have approval to spend the money.
spend the money.
You know, I would think that I think that we'd want to. There'd need to be some setup. And not just at the annual meeting say, well, we're gonna spend, $3,000 in buoys. I think that there needs to be a little prep work on that. And a little more discussion on that too. Bob, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say that you should possibly consider standalone meeting and go along with Joe's stuff here, because this is gonna be a meeting. You're gonna hear some stuff, you got a whole list of agenda items.
Controversy seems to be our middle name.
Yeah.
But
One of the things too, though, I mean, there is only one boat landing that everybody goes to, and that's at Cleese Landing. There's a nice parking lot across the way, right? People that don't live on the lake, so they have to go through the channel. To get to the north end, and the big water is, they can do their tubing and wake surfing, and then they go to the sandbar. Be nice if we could get that Champion Fire Track out, cleaned out, people could use that, and let's say, long-term erosion types of things, so deep on the channel.
Well, there's Lynn's Creek in the northwest too.
Well, but that northwest landing, that's really not a landing, that's. You know. what I'm
Okay.
talking about.
all right, where do we want to take this? I'm up for suggestions. I think we gotta go to the township too,
I think that's the place we have to start.
and then I think
If we strike out there, then we do it on our own,
But what are you going to the township about?
partnering with them on it.
Well, it could be a conversation to see what they suggest. Whether they want to partner or whether they prefer the Lake District since it now exists to take it over. Again, if we partner with them, we've ceded control to the town of Tainter. And they may not have the same objectives that a Lake District is going to have when it comes to maintaining those buoys.
I think, Tom, the next town board meeting that you have, can it be brought up there? And then you can come back with information on how that conversation went.
can you get on the agenda?
We'll see.
Maybe.
They've been reluctant to put me on the agenda when I go there to discuss things.
Really?
What happens if the board requests to be put on the agenda and a couple of us show up?
Well,
I mean, that's,
Try and get on the board.
you know what? That's an answer right there. If they won't even allow us to get on the agenda,
they let me speak, but it's in public comment.
why wouldn't they want you on? You are the representative of the town of Tainter on this board. See, that's telling me that, yeah, well, see where you get.
I just think we have to be refused before we take it over. That's just. Because then that gives us a reason to do it.
And would you consider not being able to get on the agenda for the town board meeting a refusal?
Well, if we take it over sooner or later, they're gonna have to put us on the agenda to be able to take action on it. Unless,
Al, I talked to Doris about 2 weeks ago on that one topic you asked me about, if we could, rent the hall down there and stuff,
Yeah.
and, maybe she was having a bad day or whatever, but she said, if you want to get on the agenda, you have to ask at least 7 days ahead, and preferably 14 days ahead. And they have their board meetings usually on the second Thursday, so. She was,
That's true, because they have to publish it just like we do.
okay. But she was very nice to me and stuff, and
She was?
yeah.
Oh, good.
So, I don't,
Should be.
Send Chuck back.
I may have to,
Let's,
I'll make sure I ask them well in advance.
I'd be willing to go and speak also to the issue.
Okay.
Jim, did you want to come?
Yeah, if
I mean,
it works out, I will be there.
that, I mean, I just don't want to make a decision yet until we've had all sides of the story told. And then I'm sensing from the group that, that this is something that, we'll advocate for, however that works out. And then, so then, we got, we'll see where they want to go with it. I mean, maybe their position has changed. Maybe it hasn't. Who knows? But your point is well taken with the responsibility. Okay, are we good with that?
Yep.
Tom, you'll make the request,
I will do that.
as a representative. I think that would be only fair that you make that request. Anything else on that subject? I think we have a direction. The other thing I hear from the board, and it should be reflected in the minutes, is that we should, when we have our community meetings, that, buoy placement or buoys, we'll have to get together on that, but buoy placement or the buoy topic should be a part of those public meetings. So twofold. Number one, our action should be to speak to the Tainter Township board. And the second is that this should be a topic that we should target on that discussion. Okay,
In the best of all worlds, what would you expect the board to do when you appeared before them? Would you expect them to take some kind of action at that board meeting, or defer to a future one, or are you just trying to get the conversation started?
They couldn't take action unless they published an action item.
specific action.
Yeah.
I would guess that the best outcome would be that they would take it up as some specific recommendations at the next board meeting, along with the conversation with this board.
At the following.
Right.
board
That
meeting?
maybe not the next one after it, but that we would have a discussion between the two boards.
Well, these things are moving.
Right,
If that happens. Yeah.
right. But if not, then,
Then we know where we stand.
right. I had another thought, but I lost it.
I've composed an email. I'm going to send it out to everybody on the board with a link to the DNR's guidelines for creating local boating ordinances and placing waterway markers. So you guys all have it, and then a link to the town of Tainter's slow no wake ordinance. So,
Okay, that
so
would be,
everybody will have all that information.
that would
So
be good to have. Where is the town of Tainter ordinances? Are they?
it's on their
their
they have,
website?
yeah, the town's website. So
Okay, do you put that together or is it?
I don't do that one. No.
Okay. I was just wondering. You went through it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a direction. and we have, it's not going away and we're on it. I think those other issues, that Bob brought up will fall into place once we get, the big pieces, done. Okay, anything else on that subject? Okay, discussion of determining the fiscal year. Grant, you had recommended we go from September to August.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other thoughts?
No, I think that's good because it matches up with the annual meeting, makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's just gonna keep it a little bit cleaner. It'll keep. Everything that's all the spending that's approved at an annual meeting. Will then be paid to us. August 20th is always gonna fall slightly after our last annual meeting. So at the annual meeting, we are gonna have, like I said before, probably 95% of the information of the year. We can just simply say we're gonna be getting our last payment from last year on August 20th, and we will close our books at the end of August then.
right.
And so
I don't know that that last payment in August, if it's anything like school districts, it's gonna be a smaller one.
okay,
The bigger one will be the first one because that's when they collect the most. So
Yep.
it's not really equal, but it's those deferred taxes and those kinds of things that come in that August one.
even
So,
better then. So then it's
It's
a
a
small
smaller
payment.
amount,
It's, yeah, okay.
Okay. Could you want to put that in a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to begin our fiscal year September 1st and end at August 31st.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second to begin the fiscal year September 1, ending August 30th. All those in favor signify by, I could ask, is there any other discussion? We actually got that backwards, but that's okay. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Tom, you're up. Insurance bid.
Okay, insurance bid is right here. So our insurance bid was good for June 1st to September 1st.
Okay,
So it's gonna have to be rebid.
Right.
So I have contacted broker to have it rebid.
Oh.
And as soon as it gets rebid,
then we'll get,
we can bring it up again.
prove it. Okay, what was it, before?
700 and change, $721.
Okay. All right. $721. So we have $3,882.67. So that we ought to be able to afford that.
What's this bid cover?
Liability. Officers,
Errors and omissions.
errors and omissions. And jeepers, now you're gonna make me think. And
Workers' comp.
what was it?
Workers' comp.
And worker comp, thank you. Yes, those three.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll table that till the next time we have a bid. Discussion and for the pre-application. I sent that out a little bit to you guys. Thank you, Chuck and Pete for helping me on that. We had a bit of a time crunch because I was going on vacation. Not because we dawdled, but we had the first draft in. The process is the first draft is September 15th, and then it's reviewed by the Madison, and it's reviewed by our biologist, which would be Alex Smith. And then they make comments. Then we make the corrections, rewrites, or whatever their suggestions are. And then the final submission is in November 15th. There's basically two parts to the grant. It's really an educational planning grant, so it's kind of both. The two parts are, number one is the strategic plan, based on 4 to 6 community group, and those community meetings are they're 40% education. So we get to say, we're not going to go to these meetings and say, well, what do you think? We're going to spend at least a half hour, 45 minutes educating the public as to what has been done, what is some of the science, what are some of the facts, and we'll put that information together. Then we're going to ask them questions about what they see as the predominant issues facing the lake. What are their concerns? The other thing is, I want to know what people's expectations are. I mean, because if they're expecting clear water in 5 years, that's a whole different ballgame than, making incremental impacts every year. And so and then from there, we take and then we survey the people that can't make the meetings, because there'll always be somebody that can't make the meetings. And there'll be some people that'll make every meeting. But then we take that information and then we write a strategic plan. And that strategic plan prioritizes us as to what our priorities are going to be and where we're going to put our efforts to get things done. The other thing is, the other part of that grant is hiring a consultant. Because one of the things that we're swimming in data, and what data do we need to be cognizant of, and what's out there. I don't know what's out there. I could take a gazillion hours and find that, but I want to take and have somebody tell me, these are the data points that you need to be focusing on. Obviously, our total daily load limit is going to be one of them, but there are other things we be watching for. I don't know those things. The other thing is, that's the precursor to writing a management plan, because we can't write a management plan without having a consultant. So if we want to get into the weed cutting business and we want to start doing the dredging and those kinds of things, those have to be a part of a management plan. And so the reason why they have to be a part of the management plan is to get the permits. The DNR isn't going to pass out permits unless they can see that you're making an impact on the lake and you have a plan to make that impact. So that's the two major focuses of the grant, and that surface water grant. The other thing is, you'll notice on there that it's more than $5,000. I know we had asked for $5,000 for strategic planning in the budget. But the state will put up to 5,000, and we have to have a 30% match to that. Now, I matched us in cash instead of hours, because I wasn't going to goof around with how many hours does it take to write the plan and all of those kinds of things.
We have the cash.
And so I think it was $4,600 for the grant. And then we would have to come up with about $2,000 on our own, and which we have in that. And so the other $3,000 for strategic planning can be for other things. If not, we can roll that over into next year and use that towards next year's projects. But that's the some substance of the grant. We still have to write the final grant. I haven't heard back yet from, the DNR. But that's kind of where we're going. Any questions?
When do you expect to hear back?
If I don't, right now, I imagine, I think Alex is probably the major, player in that whole thing. He's probably out in the field while it's still, nice out. And so, I could ask him to see when they're gonna get back to us, but I would suspect, probably the first part of October to give us some time to write the
We're
final.
gonna have to have time to.
Do the
finish
fun.
it up.
Yeah, there's some other things in there, but we've written about 85% of the grant. There's just some other things in there that have to be done or strengthened. But. Okay. So that's where we are with the grant.
I think I may have asked this already, Al, but do we have to pick a consultant between 10/1 and November 15th?
No. That's
Okay,
sometime by the end of the grant cycle.
okay, thank you.
And so they'll get, I don't know when the state's fiscal year runs, if it's calendar or June, July to June. But I think we have so many months to spend the money.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? Thank you, gentlemen, for your help. I appreciate it. And thank you for your consideration of getting that done on such a crunch timeline. One of the things that we had identified as some of our goals were to get some potential informational speakers at meetings. Okay, so that we spend a half an hour inviting somebody to speak to us about a number of things to educate the board. I have 3 names here I'm gonna throw out. I'll take any other names that you guys have thought, or if you don't think of them today, and you think of them later, let me know. One, I would really like to get Alex Smith here. He's our biologist. I'd like to see him here. And I've worked with him on this Red Cedar Basin the partnership. He's on that committee. I've met with him and talked with him. I think it's would be nice if all of you could put a name to the face. The other one that I think would be key to have is Chase Cummings, our county land and water conservationist. He's the head of that department. Chase has been integral in the formation of this and guiding the county board through the whole process. I think Chase has some thoughts. Again, that's one of those people that'd be nice to have in our corner. The third one that I thought of is actually she lives down the river. She doesn't live on the lake, but the DNR fish biologist that is in charge of the Tainter Lake. She and a coworker divide this region up, and she has Tainter Lake. And she was the one that wrote the fish study, the most recent fish survey. And so she would be kind of interesting, I think, from a habitat standpoint.
Gina?
No. If you hadn't asked me, I'd probably be able to tell you. I'd have to look at my notes. She just lives down the river.
Can I put that in my notes?
Yeah,
She
what,
just lives
down the river.
Is it Casey?
Just put
Smart.
DNR fish biologist.
Al, is it Casey by chance?
Yes, Casey.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yaley,
about.
or
The
Yaley,
Yale, I don't know how to pronounce. It's
Yaley,
Yale,
Yaley.
yep, that's who it is.
right,
She lives down in the cutoff down there.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
yeah, so I mean, she's, and just like I told you before, she's up the cycle for the fish survey now. They're doing it every 5 years instead of every 10. So the current one is out there. Habitat is one of our, gonna be one of our focus.
I have the study at home. I'll look it up.
Anybody have anybody else?
I was just thinking, how about a representative from some parallel lake district?
Lake Altoona.
Well, one that has the similar issues.
Lake Altoona would be an awesome one, Pete. There's a lot of information. If you just go on Google and start searching Lake Altoona, some of the things they've tried to do.
Yeah.
They're facing a lot of the same challenges we are. And so they're,
Oh, just so that you know, I put in the grant, $300 for a Zoom account so that we can take and have these speakers. They don't have to come, they can speak.
Well, I was actually thinking of that just for some of the people who maybe can't attend the meeting in person for whatever reason, then they could actually be listening in.
Right.
For that kind of thing.
So just so that you know, that was another thing. I put the dollars for a Zoom account in there.
Okay,
Actually, the second year we'd have to pay for it, or that could be one of our in-kind costs too, so.
Tom, it's Casey Yalley. And it's Kasey. Yallay.
Yeah.
Same thing backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
There.
Palindrome.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add to that list is what Adam brought up, that Aquarius. If that weed harvesting, I think it'd be interesting to have them come in and talk about what they do.
Okay.
I do have a fairly long list that I came up with, and I know you told me that I have to learn how to move like a glacier in life, so that's not easy for me. I could just email it to you guys, or I can rattle through it quickly. I mean, it's
Go through it.
I'd like to, I don't have specific people in mind yet, but these would be more to like topics. So I think the economic impact of what, if we were able to do some things that would actually improve the quality of the lake, what would that economic impact look like? I know there's the study that was done by UW Whitewater that Eric Peterson referenced in his letter. But also even talking with like maybe the treasurer of Dunn County to better understand, where do our taxes currently go? If we make these improvements and all of a sudden our property values go up and we're being taxed more, are we going to be able to put some of that money back into the lake? Yeah, so basically economic impact, the current situation with what we're already being taxed, and what that means in dollars a cents to Dunn County, what it means to the Tainter Township, what it means to our local school districts, just all those types of things. Because the other thing that I would maybe just start to do on my own here is between Julia Lammer, Joe Rosbach, some of the local realtors in the area that sell lakes on this house, approaching them and asking them, if where currently people can't get a boat in and out because it's filled in with sand, that house is worth how much now? What would it be worth if you could have lake access on it and the water remain green? If as we were digging into our data and we say we want to reduce the phosphorus content or the algae bloom by X amount, what would that likely mean? Could we find some comparable lakes in the area to pull some comps? I also am very interested in trying to learn or talk about different ways that we as a lake district can generate revenue like a business would outside of having to tax ourselves. So, maybe fundraising, some things like that, but even here's a rough idea, and I don't know if it would work, but if we were to dredge and we were to remove all that sand, could we then sell all that sand and pay for part of the project? That's a rough idea, but it's something I think we should look into. And along with weed harvesting, how can we get the lake back for people that it's been taken away? If you go on Google Earth time lapse, it starts in 1984 and it comes to present day, and it just gradually shows you how much of the lake we've already lost. If we were to, how can we fix that? Can we do a drawdown? Can we dredge? Can we weed harvest? How can we get the people in the upper part of the lake that lost their lake? How can we get that back? Obviously the phosphorus reduction, I'm sure that's where the DNR guy is probably going to focus his time, and I'm very interested to learn more about that. And then my last thing is, how can we prevent things from getting toxic? Because ultimately that's where the health issues, everything like that come in. So, not allowing it to sit in bays on surface weeds and cook until it's the color of your shirt and it stinks up the whole township. We don't have to accept that. Wolski Bay and Menominee was like that for a very long time, and it hasn't been since they dredged it. There's your case study as far as I'm concerned. Can we surface spray it with, I was reading about surface spraying it with hydrogen peroxide or chlorine dioxide, which are pretty organic chemical treatments that you can treat drinking water with.
To that end, I just loaded an article to the Facebook page today about hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, we use it a lot in our
It's used
business.
in this case, it's used as a spot treatment for temporary fixes.
Yeah, it's
But-
treating the symptom, not the cause, for sure.
Right.
And I totally understand where like Dick Lammer and everybody has come from with the phosphorus reduction. At the end of the day, if we can starve it out, that's our best bet, probably.
Right.
But in the meantime, while we try to figure that out, like it has been trying to be figured out for a long time, should we be treating the symptom? And, I was down at Jake's on Saturday for Firkin Fest. I honestly think that if just some of the research I've done, if a person could come along with a surface sprayer, you could at least knock it down. I'm not saying it's going to be crystal clear Hayward, but we can fight back a little bit.
Right.
And so I know that was a lot. I'll be happy to put it in an email, but I think there's a lot of good topics we can explore here.
Well, and I think that the bigger piece is that we have to keep educating ourselves too. That, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a that wasn't my occupation, and so I gotta learn. And there are a lot smarter people than me. And I don't want to replicate what everybody else is doing. And so I think those are all good. Put them in an email. I think it's up to us to start working. I sent you our plan of work on, and then I added, and I'll resend this to you. I added a sheet that had speakers and their topic on it, so that it starts in October and goes to July, so that we spend a half an hour educating ourselves as to what these topics are. In every meeting, that means that we'll probably have to move our meetings along a little bit if we want. I don't see us, we shouldn't go over 2 hours, to be honest with you.
Yep.
That means we got to get our work done a little faster, but I think we're getting better as we go along. I'd like to start scheduling some of these, and if some of you have contacts or ideas, let's call me or email me and let's get them on the agenda, and let's, move those things forward so we have those things going on.
Al, I think you already got this, but how about that dam guy? I think Jerry was working on that.
Yep.
So,
Well,
It's a good one.
One of the head XL Energy guys lives in our community,
oh, okay.
and I have a former colleague that knows this person, but I haven't reached out to that person. But Jerry knew somebody. I know from what I heard that there's some issues that they have going on right now. So they may or may not want to come and talk about it, because I think there's some pieces of concrete still at the bottom of the dam that had.
I mean, if they come in January, February, March, whenever,
Yeah.
that's fine.
And it doesn't have to be, they wouldn't have to even necessarily be an educational topic either. It could just be an update
Well,
as part of a regular meeting too,
right,
so.
yeah, and well, and I think that the big thing about the drawdown, we need to educate ourselves. Does that drawdown really help us? Or does it pull more crap from upstream? Because that's the other side of the equation is
Right.
because, you know, the old timers used to say, yeah, the splash boards would go off, everything would kind of flush out and everything else. Well, just remember, when you do that, that makes more room for more stuff from up above to come down. So does it really help?
Yeah.
And-
Well, and also it just, I've noticed, because I've owned my house now 31 years and when that would go out, yeah, you would have fewer weeds, which is, then weeds is not the correct term. It's vegetation. It's
Right.
actually, most of it's naturally occurring vegetation. I never had any fish by my dock ever because there was no cover.
Right.
Now I catch, bluegills and crappies and bass and this time of year, walleye every night and never happened before because there's places for the fish now that there wasn't anything there before because they'd kill it off every time those flashboards would go out. So, one person's weed is another person's, vegetation that provides cover for fish. So there's a way to, harvest some of that to get rid of it, but, once you kill all of that off, there goes all of that habitat for fish.
Well, and the other piece of that is that if you go down at the lower part of the lake, there's no vegetation because it's all green and there's no light.
Mhm.
And if we start cleaning the lake up, there's going to be more vegetation. Reason why there's more vegetation, I'm sure at the north end is because it's a little cleaner water and. it
Well,
can
and because
grow.
it's filling in with sand. If you go
Yeah.
back in time and look, Jim, you voted for 31 years.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
deep was it off your dock in 31 years ago?
All same depth because I'm on a bluff.
Okay, so you're lucky.
Yes.
You're lucky.
I'll be one
There's
of the
about
only
100
places
other
that doesn't
houses
fill
out
in, yeah.
there that aren't so lucky.
Yeah, well, but my point is that when we solve one problem, we're gonna wind up with another.
And that's what the biologist is gonna tell us too, that there's cause and effect to everything. So what we need to decide and what the people of this lake district need to decide is what's the most important thing. Do I want to be able to get a boat in and out of my house? And if I do that, then I'm probably gonna have to give up maybe some habitat, or we need to put some habitat somewhere else so we don't lose fish population. I think they're gonna be awesome discussions and people are gonna be passionate about it.
As
So,
long as they're appropriate.
well, good luck in the public forums with
Yeah,
that.
I'm no biologist, but I see a correlation between the cleanliness of the lake near the sandbar area and all those darn weeds that are infesting the northeast and northwest part of the lake. And I really truly believe that they filter out a lot of the nitrogen and phosphorus that's out there. But, on the other hand, if I was a homeowner up there, I'd be mad as you know what.
Well, but the other thing is when they decompose,
They
They-
release it. It's like
they-
planting a cover crop. It's
Yeah.
what
it's more phosphorus and nitrogen.
Yeah.
And in the study, the interesting thing about the study, that the most recent study for the phosphorus level is it's going down, but the nitrogen levels are going up. So are you really gaining, and so anyway, enough of that. What I would appreciate you doing is if you know somebody, contact them and see if they're willing to speak and when would be good in their schedules. And so if we kind of work on this together, I just don't really want to be the only one making phone calls, is
Right.
what I'm saying. So we got a good list. I think that would be most informative. Is there anything else on that we need to talk about? Okay, the next future date is October 19th. It's the third Thursday.
Yep.
Good with that?
Yeah, and hopefully all those meetings are good with everybody, because this room has been reserved for that entire slate of potential.
Oh, good.
So
Perfect.
it's totally reserved, so don't even have to check.
Oh,
Every third Thursday of the month, right?
Mhm.
Very simple for people to remember, including myself.
Yes.
third Thursday.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. Good. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Well, that's to the end of my list. Did I forget anything like I usually do?
The only thing I see you got future agenda items on
Yep,
here. The
yep.
only thing I want to throw out there here before we leave today is, we had some great comments from the public. I think all of us are getting those things when you're out, whether it be at Jake's or wherever, people coming up to us. And there's a lot of energy about trying to get ideas done. What I think would be really helpful for both us to guide us and to just educate the public on everything that needs to be done is, can we try to create like a timeline of events that we're hoping to have happen between next October, our next meeting, and the annual meeting? You've laid out, the speakers, those kind of things, but also just educating people on what needs to be done grant wise. What we're gonna have to submit and then wait on until we can check that box and move forward. I mean, I know we maybe set ourselves up for a little bit of trouble if we aren't able to keep up to the pace that we're suggesting we're gonna try to do, but I also think it would help people just kind of understand, like, hey, we got to get through A, B, and C before we can really. But by June, we're hoping that we can have some ideas together so we can actually vote on a couple things next August. I guess that's what I would like to be able to discuss in the next meeting.
It would help, on that discussion, Grant, if you can flesh that out a little bit and just,
Yeah, what I could do is I could send an email to you guys saying, and it would just be like, it would just be a rough draft, just idea, like,
Yep.
Kind of setting some goals of things we would like, when do we want to have the first public meeting?
Right.
Pick a date.
Right.
When do we want to, so let me just, if I type it out, a lot of times I can make myself more clear than
Yep.
rambling.
No,
So-
and it helps with the rest of the group if we're reacting to something
Yes.
rather than the spoken word and a
Right.
concept.
Yep.
So then we can kind of flesh it out or add or subtract to it.
I'll get that out to us, so it's more than 2 weeks before the next meeting, so if it's something you want to put on the agenda.
I'll
it's-
put it
it's
on the agenda and I'll put your name next to it and you can lead the
Look
discussion.
at that, I volunteered more
Alright.
work for myself.
Yeah.
I'm getting good at this.
Yes, you are. Anything else? Any other agenda items that need to be added to it? I'm sure that the buoy discussion will be ongoing. I don't think it's gonna go away. Nor should it. Okay, with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying, is what I should say. Well,